The second someone says, "We should come over," it's not excitement. You feel it in your body. Your nervous system clocks it instantly. Control is about to disappear. You're home, your rhythm, you're quiet. Suddenly, someone else decides the volume, the timing, the mess. And here's the sharp part. It's not the guests, it's what they take from you without asking. Your energy drains, your focus splits, and your space stops feeling fully yours. If you grew up in the 70s or 80s, this reaction shows up way more than people admit, and for a reason. Back then, privacy wasn't a vibe, it was survival. Space was limited, boundaries were thin, so when someone knocks now, it doesn't feel social. It feels like your safest boundary just got tested. And once you understand why this boundary was wired, you'll stop blaming yourself for it. This is where the 70s and 80s part really matters. Back then, home wasn't a place to relax. It was the only space where you weren't being watched, corrected, or managed. The TV was always on, someone was always in your space, silence was rare. So control became emotional safety. When you finally had quiet, you protected it hard. And that wiring didn't disappear with age. Your nervous system learned early that peace only exists when nothing unexpected happens. That's why surprise visits still feel stressful today. Even now, your brain reads disruption as risk, not fun. You're not antisocial. Your sense of safety was built around boundaries long before boundaries were something people talked about, which is why just relax never actually works. Here's the part that makes guests feel exhausting before they even arrive: judgment. For many who grew up in the 70s and 80s, having people over wasn't casual. It felt like being evaluated. Not just your house, but your life. How clean things are, how you live, how far you've made it. That pressure didn't come from nowhere. Back then, someone always had an opinion about your furniture, your job, your choices. Comparison was normal. So your brain learned that even your own space wasn't neutral. It was monitored. When guests come over now, that old wiring wakes up. You start noticing small details. You manage impressions without realizing it. That's exhausting. It's not insecurity, it's a habit of watching yourself that never fully turned off, and it still shapes how you host today. Here's why guests don't just feel uncomfortable, they feel exhausting. Performance. For a lot of people from the 70s and 80s, having guests over means being on the entire time. You're tracking conversations, watching reactions, refilling drinks, reading silences. Even when you're sitting down, your mind isn't. You're hosting, managing, adjusting without realizing it. That didn't come from nowhere.
You grew up learning that being polite meant staying alert. Being a good host meant never relaxing. So when people come over now, your body doesn't read it as fun. It clocks it as work. That's why the idea of guests feels draining before they even arrive, and why the real relief only comes once the door finally closes. Here's the part people underestimate and quietly break: routine. For many who grew up in the 70s and 80s, routine isn't boring, it's calming. Meals happen a certain way, evenings have a rhythm, quiet comes at a specific time. That structure isn't about control for control's sake. It's how the body stays settled. Guests disrupt that flow, even when they're loved. Dinner runs late, conversations stretch past your limit, noise hangs in the air longer than your body can handle. Your body notices before your mind does. Suddenly, you're out of sync, slightly on edge, waiting for things to reset. That's why having people over can feel uneasy instead of warm. It's not rejection, it's your system protecting the routines it learned to depend on. This is the part most people get wrong. They call it cold, distant, or antisocial. But what's really happening is protection. For people shaped by the 70s and 80s, saying no to guests isn't about avoiding connection, it's about preserving calm. After growing up where quiet only came when everyone else left, peace becomes non-negotiable. So boundaries stop feeling optional and start feeling necessary. That's why you don't explain yourself anymore. You don't negotiate comfort. You choose quiet on purpose. And once you see it this way, the guilt fades. You're not pushing people away. You're protecting the version of yourself that learned how rare peace really is. So if you've ever felt strange for not loving company the way others do, this is your reminder. Nothing is wrong with you. What you're calling distance is actually discernment. What others see as avoidance is you knowing what keeps you regulated. For people shaped by the 70s and 80s, peace wasn't handed out freely. It was earned, protected, and defended quietly. That's why your home isn't just a place, it's a boundary. It's recovery. And once you understand that, you stop forcing yourself to host, explain, or apologize. You start honoring the calm your younger self never had.